And then to be a salt of the earth, also, it's not only how we act or behave, it's also how we talk, our speech. We must watch what we say. Francis of Assisi said, preach the gospel at all times. If necessary, use words. Think about it. Preach the gospel at all times. If necessary, use words. In other words, we need both our actions as well as our speech. That's why Paul says in Colossians 4:6, he says, let your conversation be always full of grace, seasoned with salt, so that you may know how to answer everyone. Seasoned with salt is a metaphor meaning wise, intelligent speech. Palatable, things that you say to edify, not to cut down people. Our speech should be quote unquote tasty to people. Our speech must edify hearers. Mark 9 verse 49. The Message Bible says, everyone is going through a refining fire sooner or later. But you will be well preserved, protected from the eternal flames. Be preservatives yourself. You and I should be preservatives. We should be salt. Preserve the peace. New Living Translation says, for everyone will be tested with the fire. Salt is good for seasoning, but if it loses its flavor, how do you make it salty again? You must have the qualities of salt among yourselves. It is writing to Christians. You must have qualities of salt among yourselves. What are these qualities I'm talking about? Being tasty, making people tasty, making lives palatable, being a preservative. To have salt in ourselves means we must have goodwill, be agents of positive changes. We must develop qualities that will promote goodwill, brotherhood, and peace. So you and I are salt. We must watch what we say. We must be preservatives. The fourth point that I want to make is we must not lose our distinctiveness. We must not lose our distinctiveness. Jesus says in Matthew 5:13, you are the salt of the earth. I want to emphasize that again. And he says, but if the salt has lost its savor, wherewith shall it be salted if it is no longer salty? How can it be salted again? It is thenceforth good for nothing but to be cast out, trodden under foot of men. There's a similar theme also in Luke 14:34-35. Jesus issues a warning there. He says, salt is good, but if the salt has lost its savor, wherewith shall it be seasoned? It is neither fit for the land nor yet for the dunghill, but men cast it out. He that has ears to hear, let him hear. So how does salt lose its saltiness? I try to find that out. It's not by water. Because even as you add water, it is still there. When the water evaporates, you still have your salt. One way that salt is altered is when it is mixed with other chemicals. And then it can become bitter, or it can become something else. It can weaken in its taste. One authority on the Middle East was saying that in Jesus' day, they had two types of salt. One was the clean salt they got from the ocean, and the other was from the Dead Sea. The one they got from the Dead Sea contained some minerals that were good for plants. So the farmers will pile them at the back of their house and use them like they use fertilizer, just small amounts. But then when it rained, the sodium chloride would seep out, and what was left was this white mineral that was thickened. It became thick. So if the farmers needed some place where they could walk to make it harder, they would sprinkle this thing there. And so they will walk on it. It acted like some kind of cement. So that was what the Lord Jesus Christ was saying, that when the salt has come out of it, what is left is really not good for anything. It's not good for anything. If I came to you and I had something like that, and I said, take this, mix it in your food, then it will be good. You will like it. It looks like salt, You would ask me, what is it? And I say, oh, it used to be salt. Of course, you are not going to get it. You are not going to take it. It's useless. You and I can lose our saltiness. How does that come about? When we allow other doctrines. Sometimes some of our children, some parents are so surprised when their children leave for college. They go to college. Before they were going, they were Christians, active in the youth ministry. And then they come back and they are completely different. What happened? Because they took courses or they came in contact with some people who were anti-God, and before long their mind is changed. The salt is already lost. And they come back and they are as rebellious as you can imagine. And you wonder, what happened to my son? What happened to my daughter? We can lose our salt that way. Losing our saltiness can also mean losing our zeal for Christ and the things of God. It is very, very, very easy to lose our zeal. Very easy. Because the moment we take our eyes off of our relationship and we are focusing on other relationships, there are in fact, the enemy has too many weapons that he can use to really take the salt out of us. So we become really useless. Jesus says, once you were salt and now you are no more salt, what can we add to it? We have to maintain our distinctiveness. We have to continue to be salt. We have to continue to be salt. One of the ways we have to be careful about is whom we follow. Be careful of false prophets, doctrines of men, philosophies, Paul says. Because wrong doctrines can undermine our faith and make us less than useful. That's why Paul admonished the church in Philippi by saying, Philippians 3:17-18, he says, dear brothers and sisters, pattern your lives after mine. When I was a new Christian and I read that, I thought Paul was one of the most arrogant people on earth. But he knew what he was talking about. Pattern your lives after mine and learn from those who follow our example. For I have told you often before, and I say it again with tears in my eyes, that there are many whose conduct shows they are really enemies of the cross of Christ. There are people and if you go on to read, he talks about they are in it for what they can get. He says their bellies are their God. And you follow people like that, and you end up being like them, or worse yet, something different even happens to you. There's one thing I want to say about not losing our distinctiveness. See, because we are salt. Salt is like salt and open wound don't go together. You know that. So we may be moderate, doing the best we can. But there are certain people we will come in contact with who will still resist.